Imagine the world in 1942 during World War II. Many countries in Europe had been taken over. It involved many nations fighting to protect freedom, safety, and their futures. The United States had recently joined the fighting after an attack on its own territory, and it also needed to help its friends, known as the Allies, push back against powerful Nazi forces. But there was a big challenge. The Nazis controlled most of Europe, and their defenses were extremely strong. If the Allies tried to land in Europe right away, they could lose many soldiers and equipment. So they needed a smarter place to begin, a place where the enemy was weaker but still important. That place was North Africa. It might seem far away on the map, but the region was full of important ports, supply routes, and positions that could help launch future missions. The military leaders realized something. If the Allies could win in North Africa, they could start turning the entire war around. This bold plan became known as Operation Torch, a mission that would become the first major American-led operation in the war and the beginning of a new chapter in defeating the enemy. Whoever controlled North Africa could control how supplies moved between Europe, the Middle East, and beyond. At this time, enemy forces had teamed up with powerful military leaders who were known for being smart and difficult to defeat. The Allies, especially the United States and Britain, needed a plan to challenge these forces, but they had to do it in a way that gave them the best chance of success. So the leaders decided, start in Africa, build strength, move north toward Europe. Operation Torch was not just a military mission. It was the first big move in a long plan to take back freedom for millions of people. Operation Torch required huge amounts of planning. Imagine preparing the world's largest group project, except instead of papers and pencils, you needed ships, airplanes, fuel, maps, weather predictions, and strong teamwork between many countries. The Allies chose three main landing locations. 1. Casablanca in Morocco, a major coastal city with a huge port. 2. Oran in Algeria, another essential port with access to inland roads. 3. Algiers in Algeria, the capital city and a political center. These places were chosen carefully because capturing them would give the Allies control over the coastline and provide safe landing spots. But planning the landings wasn't simple. The region was controlled by Vichy France, a French government that wasn't exactly the enemy, but wasn't helping the Allies either. No one knew how they would react when the Allied ships arrived. This meant the planners needed a backup plan, and another backup plan, and even more backup plans. The Allies also needed to move more than 100,000 soldiers across the Atlantic Ocean without being noticed. For months, they practiced boarding ships, navigating at night, and working in complete secrecy. The whole mission now depended on preparation, and everyone knew failure wasn't an option. Before the invasion, the Allies reached out to some French leaders and civilians living in North Africa. Many of them did not support the enemy and wanted to stand with the Allies, but they had to be careful. Speaking out openly could put them in danger. So secret meetings were held in quiet rooms, back alleys, or safe houses. Messages were passed quietly between trusted people. Plans were whispered, maps were shared, and strategies were created so the local helpers could support the Allies from the inside. In Algiers, a special group of brave civilians took an especially big risk. On the night before the invasion, they moved through the city, peacefully taking over certain buildings like telephone centers and government offices. Their goal was not to cause chaos, but to prevent enemy reinforcements from being called too quickly. Thanks to these helpers, When Allied troops began landing the next morning, parts of the city were already in friendly hands. This teamwork made a huge difference and saved precious time. Operation Torch was not just about soldiers and ships. It was also about cooperation, trust, and people from different countries working together for a common goal. On November 8th, 1942, hundreds of Allied ships approached the shores of North Africa. The sea was calm, but the tension was high. Soldiers waited silently in landing craft. Commanders watched the coastline, hoping the months of planning would pay off. Algiers, just because the local resistance had already taken control of key buildings, the Allies were able to land smoothly. The city's defenses were confused and overwhelmed by how quickly the situation changed. By the end of the day, Algiers was under Allied control, making it the first major victory of the mission. The landing at Oran was more challenging. The defenders were unsure of what to do, and there was confusion on all sides. Still, the Allies moved carefully and patiently. They secured the port and nearby areas through steady communication and teamwork. Casablanca was the busiest landing of all. The city was heavily protected, and the Allies had to stay calm as they worked their way toward their goals. After 2 days of steady effort, the situation turned in their favor. By November 11th, all 3 landings were successful. The Allies now had a strong foothold in North Africa, the first major step toward winning the war. News of the Allied landings spread quickly across Europe. Leaders on the enemy side were surprised and worried. They had expected a landing somewhere, but not in North Africa, and not with this much force. In response, enemy leaders moved quickly. They sent soldiers into parts of France they didn't fully control before, hoping to strengthen their hold over Europe. These actions caused political changes that reshaped the war in Europe and made many leaders question their strategies. Meanwhile, in North Africa, the success of the landings boosted Allied confidence. For the first time, American troops were fighting in large numbers on the ground. They learned valuable lessons about teamwork, strategy, and coordinating with other nations. Operation Torch didn't end the war, but it revealed something important. The Allies could work together and win difficult battles. They could surprise the enemy. They could push into new territories. And for millions watching the news around the world, Operation Torch was a sign of hope, a sign that the war might finally start turning in the right direction. One of the most surprising events during Operation Torch came from the French forces in North Africa. Although they were originally controlled by the Vichy government, many of them didn't want to support the enemy's goals. A French leader named Admiral François Darlan made a major decision. He announced that French forces in North Africa should stop resisting the Allies and instead join them. This was a major turning point. Overnight, thousands of French soldiers became allies instead of obstacles. This decision wasn't simple. It came with political disagreements and confusion, but in the end, it helped strengthen the Allied position. French troops worked alongside American and British forces in later battles in Tunisia and beyond. The switch showed something important about Operation Torch. It wasn't just a military mission. It also changed the relationships between nations. It brought countries together. It created new alliances. It boosted morale and increased the size of the Allied forces. And it proved that even in difficult times, people could choose to stand for freedom and unity. Operation Torch may not be the most famous part of World War II, but it was one of the most important. It was the first time American troops fought on a large scale in the European theater. It showed that the Allies could plan a huge mission in secret, carry it out across an ocean, and succeed. Torch taught the Allies valuable lessons about landing troops, coordinating fleets, managing supplies, and planning large operations, all skills they would later use during even bigger missions, like the invasion of Italy and the D-Day landings in Normandy. Torch also helped push enemy forces out of North Africa. This opened the door for future missions that slowly pushed the enemy back toward Europe. Step by step, the Allies took back control of important areas and rebuilt confidence around the world.